Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me now, Rhonda? That was weird. Just let me know. Let me test it on mine as well. Okay, thanks, Rhonda, for letting me know that that was bizarre. Everything is bizarre these days. But hey, good going now. Yeah, good go. Oh, look, 2 thumbs up, Rhonda. Appreciate that. Oh, thanks, Gloria. Okay, so I was just talking to myself that whole time. Let's see what I must have had something real juicy gossip, and I forgot now what it was. Just kidding. Okay, so I did a resource book front cover, and I also did a little directions and sample page, and there's a link in the description to go to. It's payhip.com/schoolhouse, and there are 2 separate files. One is the page, and one is the front cover that you can download and print out. I didn't do any pictures or anything. It's just to go along with the video for you. A little refresher. I'll do a picture one later. Okay, so if you want to go ahead and go over and print that out now if you want. I'll muddle along slowly so you don't miss anything. So how this came about is I was looking for one of my Quilt in the Day rulers, Flying Geese, and they're all over the place. And I have a place where I keep all my tall squares and rectangle rulers, and these were down with them, and they're so far down in my little area that I have them in that half the time I can't see them, don't know what I have. So I got all annoyed the other day, and I decided, well, I'm just going to put them all in sleeves. So here's my small Flying Geese one, and then I'll put the pages in to go with it because I didn't have any directions to go with it. And so so this is where the large one goes. And I've got the triangle and a square, which is these 2. Oh. Which is these 2 rulers. That one happened to have a pattern, so that was okay, but I don't want to read the whole pattern if I want to just make a square or make a unit. So I want to go through each one of them, and then I have another one which I call it it's like the kite. It's like the kite. I call it like a kite. I don't know what it's supposed to be. On point ruler. And then I've got my Fussy Cut Trio. And then I have this one here. It's called the I don't know what. But it's made for, hold on, let me get my, it's made for half square triangles and squaring up and all that. And again, I've got no directions, so that will cause me to have to think a lot. So I'm going to work my way through these, and when I do, I will do a video and a resource page to go with it. I know I have mini Flying Geese ruler. I'm sure I do, so I'm sure it's in a project somewhere. So if I take one out to use in a project, I'm going to slip a piece of paper in there because the instructions will be there. But I'm going to slip a piece of paper in there and tell myself what box of what project it's in, because, you know, I'm probably the only one in the whole world that has unfinished projects. Just kidding. Okay, so that's my plan for what I'm doing. And now they're all in there. They're not going to get away. It doesn't matter what size they are. And I can slide this with my other resource books. I'm going to have to put a little thing on the end. And so now I'll be able to find them. So as I'm going through things and I find another Eleanor Burns or Quilt in the Day ruler, I can add it to this group. So that's how this all came about. And I thought, well, if I was having an issue, maybe you would have an issue. All right. So let me set these aside. And when I do this method using the ruler, it makes two sizes. So one size is, see, I got rid of my display thing too soon. One size is here, 4x8 finished geese. That's a big geese. And then there's a little one on the end, this way. And that will be 2x4 finish. So every time you have a Flying Geese ruler, I do believe it has two sizes. The two I found so far do. So I'm just going to set that there. So I'm going to do the little one second. So the first fabric, the bigger fabric, and I'm going to be using the large side of the ruler. The first fabric is 11 inches, and it tells you that on the resource pages. It's 11 inches, and the smaller one, which is the geese part, so this is the geese part. So your smaller fabric will be the geese or goose. Not sure how I don't know on a Flying Geese block because there's only one, and they still say geese. I don't know what the proper lingo for that would be. But your smaller fabric will be this part, and your larger fabric would be what we would call the background. Okay? Now, if you want to cut ahead for the next one, the smaller one is, the smaller geese unit is 7 inches and 5.5 inches at squares. So the 5.5 inch one is the smaller one. That would be the geese part. Okay? We need a marking pen. We need a marking pen. And in Gloria's honor, I have red thread in, Gloria. Aren't you proud of me? So we're going to need a marking pen, and I also have the Quilt in the Day straight line ruler. So the nice thing with this ruler, right out loud, Lorene. The nice thing with this ruler is it's just straight lines, straight vertical lines, or horizontal, depends. But there's not a lot of other stuff going on. And also, every other line is red, so red, green, red, green, red, green. So I'm going to use that to draw my lines with and to cut with. I'm going to fire up my iron. Okay, so hopefully everybody's back if they went and downloaded, or again, you can download it later on. So the bigger fabric you're going to lay down first on your table, right side up, and the small one right side down, and you're just going to center it. Let me back up just a tad. Let me get some things out of the way here. There we go. we're just going to center it, eyeball center it, right sides together. So this top one is face down, right side down. Okay? So, are you sewing along with me, Gloria? It says I am, but I my retention is apparently a little low because I don't remember what I asked. Hopefully someone's sewing along with me. And I'm sorry for that glare, so I'll put my hand over that glare. So we're gonna draw a line on the diagonal. And my ruler isn't quite long enough, but I don't need to go out much past where the smaller block is because I'm not going to be sewing out there. And I'm going to draw my line extra dark so you can see it. So you don't have to have your line quite so dark. Couldn't see where I left off. Oop. So I've drawn that line down the middle on the diagonal. And you're going to use, if you have your, let me zoom in. We're going to be sewing a 1/4 inch on either side of this line. So if you have your 1/4 inch foot with the guide, the machine I have set up doesn't take this foot. You're going to put the guide on the line and stitch down. And then you're going to turn around and come back and stitch down the other side. So can you see how the guide, so my guide, it's making a shadow. How do I, the guide is on the line. If you want to be cautious, you want to be more towards the right side of the line. You don't want to have the line past your guide. You're better off to have the line just inside the guide because that would give you a scant 1/4 inch, which is okay because we're going to trim up anyway. So if you want to run your guide so you can just see the line on the left side or the inside of your guide, you can do that. Just don't go too far in because you don't want to have a seam allowance that you can't, is too small, because these two pieces are going to share this seam allowance. So each one needs to have almost a 1/4 inch on either side. Okay, so if you're going to use your 1/4 inch foot with the guide, your guide goes on that line. Alrighty? So let me back up some more. So I still have my straight stitch machine up that I got back from service that I wanted to run a while. So it has a 1/4 inch foot, but with no guide, and that wouldn't show you how. I know most people have the 1/4 inch foot with the guide. So I'm going to stitch down. I'm going to stitch down one side and then back up the other side. And you can see me right here. Let me just move this up a tad. So I'm not going far. You can see me right there. Oh, let's have some pins, because this is rather a big couple pieces of fabric. And you know, before I cut my fabric, I always best press or starch it, give it a little more body. If you forgot to do that and you got time to do it now, it's a big enough piece, it's okay. And because this is so big, I'm going to put in 4 pins. Can you imagine? I'm actually using 4 pins at one time. Okay, so let's see. Everybody's all set. Oh no, you're not sewing with me, Gloria? Are you proud of me for what is it? Rounding up my my rulers and putting them somewhere I can find them again. Okay, so I've got 4 pins, and you notice they're away from where I'm going to sew, so I don't have to worry about, excuse me, I don't have to worry about taking them out as I'm sewing along. Sorry. Okay. Oh, she's proud of me. I know why she's proud of me. She's proud of me that I put red thread in. So I'm going to start stitching just about where this top smaller fabric is. And I've got the like 2,000 million stitches a minute machine up, so I got to move my foot so that I don't get carried away here. Okay. Probably help if I turned the machine on, wouldn't it? It has so little light to it, I couldn't tell if it was on or not. I thought for a minute it was broken again. So we're just stitching along at a moderate rate of speed, because fast sewing doesn't make good sewing. So I've gone down one side, see my red thread, and I'm going to just turn around and come back the other way. We don't need to do any locking stitches. So there we are. I'm not going to press yet. I can go ahead and take my pins out. Because I'm going to be using my ruler, so I don't want any pins in my way. So I'm going to be cutting down right where that drawn line is, okay? It doesn't have to be exact, doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just making my seam allowance. Oop. Okay. So now I have 2 pieces. And there's my seam. And my seam. I need to press these. So I'm going to lay it like this because I want to flip this one up, okay? So I can go ahead and set my seam, and then I'm just going to press it. I'm going to just push it so I don't have any crease there. Ooh, my steam's working. So you notice I'm just staying right in here at the seam. I'm going to do the other one. Hopefully you'll have a little bit bigger pressing area than I've got. And my seam didn't quite flip right, so I'm just going to leave that there for a minute to give it a little extra. There we go. Okay, so I've got my 2 pieces. Hopefully, excuse me, when you're done sewing your first one, don't fling it over like I did because it needs to cool a little bit. So just set it aside nicely. So now we're going to take so that we're opposite. So I got my polka dots to this blue and my blue to these polka dots. And I want to, you're going to want to like line the seams up. You don't want to do that. You want to line the whole block up. So I want to line up along here. And these are going to be offset so that we don't have to make sure we get these seams right. So you see that difference there? My seams aren't together. My edges are together. Make sure you pick it up. It should have the opposite on it and the opposite on it. Okay? So now we need to draw another diagonal. We don't want to draw it along the seam. We're going to go opposite of what the seam is. Okay? And we're going to go corner to corner. Let me see, where's that glare? There we go. Hope I don't cut my fingers off. I mean, draw on my fingers. And I want to go corner to corner, kitty corner in my world. And I got this seam right here that's going to fold back. So I'm going to draw that way. So I'm not flipping that seam back. And I wouldn't normally draw that thick of a line. So there's my line going down. And I want to pin again, because these are big pieces of fabric. And we're going to end up with 4 flying geese. It's magical. Would that make them, if they're magical, would that make them unicorn geese? Okay, so let me just check, see if there's any questions. No, we look good so far. So now we're going to do the exact same thing again. 1/4 inch foot with the guide. The guide is going to be on the line because we're going to sew a seam on either side of the line, about 1/4 inch on each side away from this line. So you're going to sew right down. When you get here, be careful that this doesn't flip up. Just take your time and make sure, let's see which way. So this one is facing would be facing towards you. So there shouldn't be any reason for that to, I have to stop and pretend I'm sewing. There shouldn't be any reason why this one flips, because it's going in the right direction to begin with. So here we go again. So I'm coming up to where that seam is. I'm going to put my hands holding that seam down. But if you need to stop, raise your foot up, or if you have your machine that has pivot, let the pivot do the work. And we want to make sure we go right to the edge. And when I started mine, I didn't start right at the edge, so I'm just going to go back and fix that. Now we're just going to turn around and we're coming back down the other side of the line. And again, we want to start at the edge of the fabric. Make sure your guide is on or inside the line, just inside. Yeah, there really shouldn't be any big issue with the seam because we've already tacked it down, but just the same, put both your hands there. Oh, I got a wayward thread. So there we go again. Check out that red thread there, Gloria. Looks good, doesn't it? Okay, so you can see the blue line in the middle is where I've drawn, and you're going to be stitching on either side of that line. Oh, might as well leave that there. Let me stick that out of the way. Oh, no. So we're going to cut first. So I'm putting my ruler edge right on that drawn line I had. So now I've got my two pieces. I'm going to go ahead and take the pins out, because now it's going to start getting magical. I'm going to get my pressing mat. And I'm going to go ahead and set my stitches. Now I can right here, if I bend this over, well, you know what I'm going to try mine without making that cut, because I think that cut can be confusing. So let's try it this way first. So what we're going to be doing is lifting this up. So what I was referring to is this section here. If you want this to twirl, and I'll do this one, we're going to cut, let's see. I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to cut, and I'll open it up to show you. Let me press it, and then you'll be able to see exactly where I cut. I don't think it's really necessary, because I didn't feel any particular bulk there. But I know sometimes we like to do that little twirl. Oh. So now the seams are, in this case, they're going counterclockwise. Yours could be going clockwise. So I cut it right there. Do you see? So I just put a little slice. There you can see it. I just put that little slice there. So I cut up to the stitches, not on the stitches. But if you're concerned about that, I think you'll be okay if you just leave it. That way it twirls around. Because it felt pretty flat. Okay, so let me back this camera up a little bit. There we go. All right, so let me get all this other stuff out of the way. So now comes the magical part. So you remember I told you, let me face it towards you. Remember I told you that this is the geese and this is the background. You're thinking, holy cow, I'm going to get two geese out of that. So if you take your big ruler and you set it down, and let me see if I can zoom in enough. Where do I have to be? Let me move my machine over. There we go. I just got to have enough room to be on the mat. There. So this section of the ruler is going to align with this blue. Okay? And that gives you that 1/4 inch. So you see well, that's better when I left it down, I guess. You can see there's a dotted line coming across here. And from the dotted line out to the edge of the ruler is the 1/4 inch that you need for your seam allowance when you when you're putting these geese together or into a block, or that's your seam allowance. So I don't know if I can come in a little closer or not. So the actual shape of the geese, the blue, is running right with that line right there. And so the part of the ruler that's above this point is that 1/4 inch. And so when I do that, cut across there, you see now I have 2 geese now. Wasn't that magical? Okay. But I still need to trim the side, so let me back up again. And let's get somewhere where the glare isn't there. Yeah, the glare's not too bad there. So I want to make sure that I'm lined up again. And this is lined up. And I'm going to trim the side. And then I'm just going to grab my fabric over here and spin it around as best I can. So this would be a good place for your rotating mat, so that you can turn the mat around, or a smaller mat. But before I cut again, I want to make sure I'm still lined up. So this side, everything's right. And then my last one is I'm going to make sure I line this up again. And trim across the bottom. And there's my flying geese. So I'm going to set this one aside. And I'm going to do this again. So if you want to make that cut, fold it in half. They're doing the scissors. Oh, here they are. Make a little cut. Can you see how right there is the stitches? I'm a little before that. Just make a little cut there. Okay, set my seam again. I'm going to turn this so I can get the most out of my little mat here. I'm going to be lifting this and pushing it so that seam allowance goes in that direction. Flip it over to the back. And there's where my cut is, right there. So now I'm going clockwise this time. So I just want to, so this was the straight seam. This was the straight seam that I cut into. So if you want it to twirl, this is how the seam was facing towards me. Right where the cut is, I'm going to push that part of the seam away. Okay? Get my twirling mat. And I just got to make sure that here we go. I'm not sure if I've got room enough to twirl. Let me back up. Back up. Because you don't need to be quite so close this time. I just have to make sure I have room enough here to twirl around, so I'm good. Okay, so this is, I'm facing it towards you, so this is the geese. So I'm lining up, let me I'm trying to go where you don't have that blinding light. There we go. So I'm lining up the triangle of the ruler with the blue or the geese of on the fabric. I have to move it over here. Let me see if I can. There. Okay, I'm not sure if you can still hear me, if I'm still there. So let me just type in here in case. Okay, I hope it's still working okay. Let me just check mine. Sorry for that little delay there. Okay, so it's working okay. I just got a big warning up. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and trim this. And I'm always going to trim between the two geese first because that kind of orientates your eyeballs a little better. And now I can just turn my mat. And you do have to be careful with these rotating mats because they'll pop out of that little rotating area really easy, so you can't just be whipping it around. And I want to double check to make sure I'm still lined up okay. I bumped it. So there's our flying geese, and you go ahead and cut the other ones. I just wanted to do two where you split them apart. Okay? So that's the big size. Now we're going to do this little size. So let me... Oh, okay. Thanks, Rhonda. It's still going okay. The warning went away. It was like a big warning. Okay, so now we're going to be using this side. We're going to be using this little side of the ruler. So we've got our pieces, and remember this is a 7-inch square. This is a 5.5-inch square. Okay? So we're going to put right sides together, and we're going to center the small square inside of the larger square. And it doesn't have to be exact, but try to get as close as you can. Okay? And it doesn't matter if you draw this way or you draw this way. I'm going to go ahead and draw my line. So we're going to go, I want to make sure that my corners are lined up together. And again, I'm going to start from the center and go out because if I go this way, I'm just going to flip my fabric up. Okay, so, oops, don't need that shining on you, do you? So there's my line. This time I've got smaller fabric, so I don't need 4 pins. I can just put a pin on each side. And I'm going to do the exact same thing again. I'm trying to grab that foot's under the ruler. That's funny. And again, we're going to do the same thing with the 1/4 inch guide running along the line. Okay? So let me put my machine back, or at least partway there. Now, because of the foot I have on, I'm on the right side of the line. You're going to be on the left side of the line so that your guide is along that drawn line. I didn't want you to look at mine and think yours is going to be the same way. I went a little crooked. We're going to turn around and go back the other way. We'll see if my crookedness is still okay. Okay? So I sewed on either side with the red. The blue is the line. I'm going to go ahead and, let's take the pins out because they're interfering with the ruler. I'm going to go ahead and cut on the drawn line. So now I have my 2 pieces. I'm going to press again. I'm going to lift this up and let the iron push that seam out. That's the best way to not end up with a crease here. And yes, they are 2 different sizes. I noticed it more on this one than I did on the big one. It is kind of handy to get 4 geese out of this. Okay? Remember, we don't want to flop it this way. These need to be opposite. And I'm going to line up. Now, mine doesn't perfectly line up. So I'm just going to center it. I got a little over here and a little over there. But remember, the important part is these are separate from each other. So this little part right here is that center that we cut, where we cut in half. So I'm just lining them up, and it could be that I just didn't take the right seam allowance, but I'm just going to line the 2 squares up as centered to each other as I can. But before I put my pins in, remember we're drawing a line opposite of where the seams are. So we're going to the edges that don't have these little tails sticking out. And I'm trying to line mine up so my points are more in line. Remember I told you I ironed crooked, but I want to keep going to see if you're a little crooked, if it turns out okay. Because, I'm here to experiment for you. Remember, we want to watch that we don't flip this seam up when we're drawing. So I'm going to start before the seam, go over the seam, and then to the end. And you'll feel the bump right there where my pen is of the seam underneath. It's just a little bump there. Okay? So we've got our line. And of course, I did that and moved my fabric, but that's okay. Now we'll put our pins in. And we're putting them out in the area where we're not sewing. So there's my line. Can you see how I'm off a little bit over here and a little bit over there? But I want to sew this so I can see if I'm off a little bit, if it's okay. And I'm going to take my pins out just for a second because I did bump my fabric before. And I'm trying to make sure that rather than have a whole lot over here that's over, I'm just going to make sure that it's kind of even around. In this line, my 2 points aren't lining up. See if I can get it as best I can here. It doesn't pay to be off, I can tell you that, in case you're wondering. But I do want to, I'll often do this. I want to see if I'm off a lot or a little, if I really need to restitch it. Now that I've cut it apart, it's a little harder. So again, with your guide on the line, stitching down one side and back up the other. Make sure you stop and make sure you address that seam that doesn't flip back on you. The one underneath is coming towards us. There shouldn't be any issue there. And remember, they're not right on top of one another. They're about, close to an inch apart. Turn around and down the other side. And remember, my hands are going to follow this all the way to the end. I'm not going to let go until it's done stitching. So there we are. Okay, we're going to do our cut. Our cut is on the line that we drew. Set that out of the way. Now we need to press. I'm going to flip this up and let the iron push it over. Flip it over. I'm going to leave this one this time without doing that little twirl because I just want to see. Oh, it's hot right this second. Because it isn't going to matter once we cut this, but I want to make sure that my ruler doesn't tilt, and it seems to be fine. Now do the other one. Okay, so far it looks okay where I was off. We'll see in a minute. And I want to make sure when I get that settled in. Let me push back a ways. Let me get some things out of the way here. So this time is going to be a little different because we had this bottom edge and this top edge before. We don't have a bottom edge this time. It's in the ruler. So let me see. So I'm going to line up the triangle of the ruler with the triangle of the geese. And I still got that 1/4 inch above. And I'm going to cut this because I got to see how close I am to this one. And that would have been where I was off a little bit. So let me see how it works out. Okay, so I know this one is good. Let me turn this one around. Ooh, I just made it. I just made it. So let me go ahead and do that little trim. And I'm going to do this side. Then I'm going to turn my mat, double checking that nothing moved. Now I have to turn my ruler around. Let me see. And all right. I got to turn my ruler around. Oh, I can't do that. No, I'm getting myself confused now. I got to trim this bottom. So if I turn my ruler around so that the line from the big geese is running along my geese fabric, and the red line of the little triangle is along this bottom. Let me trim off that bottom so when I turn it around, it should fit perfectly in that area. So let me do that one again. And I can tell you that that place where I didn't trim this time, I think that made that a little bumpy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my other one, fold it back in half. I want to see if I can feel the difference. Fold it in half. Make that little clip. So here's my red stitches. I'm clipping up to the stitches. So if I put the point of my scissors where I want to end, I won't go too far. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing I did before and flip it over. And now I'm going to flip that half of the seam that I clipped going in the opposite direction of the other side. And I'm going to see if I can feel that difference there. So I'm just going to hold the iron a little extra right where that cut is. So one half of the seam is towards me, the other half is away from me. Okay, so I can tell this time the bottom of my geese is right at the very bottom of my fabric is right at the bottom of my line. Remember the other one I had a little extra? So you don't, if you're off, go ahead and take your seam out and do it over again because you don't want to be off that little bit after you've done all that work. And you're going to see that I'm not going to have a 1/4 inch over here. I believe I'm not. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this side. I'm going to turn. And trim the other side. And I'm going to flip it around. Put the same part down with this red line. Should be going right along the bottom here, or the top of the geese. And then this line, the green line, is following the angle of the geese. And I can feel the ruler isn't as wobbly, didn't trim out, where we didn't make that cut. So if you downloaded my little instructions, let's fix that before I forget. Pencil, need a pencil. So that little trim will go, let's see. Okay, so I did put it, number 13, clip seam up 2 stitches at center of unit. Okay, fold in half, right sides together. So you can make yourself a little note there. Okay, so where's, is this my other one? That's my other good one. So this is the one that is suffering the consequences of my bad sewing. So I am, so that you can see, see if I can hold it up. You can see how my ruler is up above my fabric. I didn't make the 1/4 inch seam. See that? So my little goose is off here. So that's why I sometimes will when I make a mistake and I can't really tell if it's obvious, if it's going to matter or not, depends on the size of the mistake. I may go ahead and work through it if I have extra fabric, just so I can see, well, what happens if I'm off a little bit. So you want to make sure you keep your fabrics straight to each other when you're stitching, and sew your seam allowance correctly, like straight, because this little guy is off by about 1/8 of an inch. Now, can I use this one? I can use it. I just have to remember that this edge is 1/8 of an inch, so it's not going to line up with the seam of the next piece. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So I can go ahead and finish. Getting this right, but yeah, I can't use this because when I get over to this edge, let's see if I can hold it up so that you can see it. See, when I get over to the edge up by my thumb, the red, see how I have no fabric? Let me see, that would be to the right of my thumb. You see how much empty space I have there and not enough fabric. So I wouldn't have enough fabric to hold, for that seam to hold. So that guy has to go in the trash. He's gone now. He's gone and forgotten. So does anybody have any questions? So here's the little guy. And here's the big guy. So let's see. Yeah, so see, he's the same distance this way. So if you had a big geese and you wanted to put some little ones going across, that would work. You know, they're not necessarily made to stitch together. They're just as two sizes on the ruler. So there we are. And we got our 1/4 inch above the point. And you notice how our edges come right down and meet. So does anybody have any questions? Is everybody all set now that I've made this big mess everywhere? So I can go ahead and finish trimming up my other ones. I can trim another, let me trim another big one. Because that one's a little easier to trim. And I'm just flinging stuff all over the place. So I always start by making sure. So you see these two tabs? They have to line up with these two tabs. So these are going vertical, these are going horizontal, so I just have to turn it. And when you set it in there, you can feel it, and then you can just twirl it. So I'll do this facing your way. So I'm lining up. The first thing you do is line up the goose and take care of, or the geese, and take care of that top first. Okay? And we're going to turn it. And I really can do two sides at one time. Oh, see that? They make, these rulers are a little slipperier than my regular rulers, and they do make the little round little grippers that you can put on the rulers. And I just have to do this right side. So remember, with the bigger geese, you're using up the entire ruler. So when you put it down correctly, you can go across around all four sides. If you're doing the little one, then I'll do one more. You're going to line it up. Oh, I think I trimmed that one already. You're going to line up your triangle with your geese fabric, and you can go, you're going to be able to do 3 sides. Okay? Then you're going to turn the ruler, so now the edge of the ruler is the edge of the geese fabric. You're going to line up the red line of the little geese with the bottom of the fabric of the unit, and then this blue line is going to go along with the geese. Well, let me do it. I can do it this way, and you can see that way I can cut right. So the red line is at the very top. Okay, which guy's in the way this time? All right. The top of the geese is now lined up with the bottom of that triangle, and then the geese itself is lined up with that long blue line, or green, I can't really tell you which color it is. And I can feel that's the one with that I didn't do the cut, and I don't know if you can see it, but I can rock this ruler back and forth. So that's not easy to use when your ruler can rock around like that. Okay, and then there's the geese, and you know that it's right because it fits in totally within that area with that 1/4 inch at the top. Okay, so this is the large Flying Geese ruler dimensions. All the other sizes will cut the same. You're just going to start, so that it says large. The other sizes of rulers start out with different size fabrics. And I don't have them all right now, but I'll work on getting them, and I'll just put up another resource page for whatever size I can put my hands on right now is the small Flying Geese ruler. So I can do a page in the resource section for the small Flying Geese ruler. The same cutting instructions, the same methods of drawing your lines, corner to corner. It's just that you're going to start out with different size squares. And this one, this is the small one. It also has, this one's 3x6 finished, and this one's 1.5 by 3.5. So it has the two sizes on it. So I'll figure these out. Now, I don't know if mine came with instructions and I lost them, which I don't generally do, but I could have. So you may not have yours, and you may, so either way. But I will I'll make another page like the one I did, and I'll put the cut instructions for these. I can do that part. So let's see, does anyone have any questions? Oh, thanks, Rhonda. Wasn't that fun? Well, except for the one I messed up, but I knew it was messed up, and I could have stopped right then and fixed it. When I was lining them up and they wouldn't line up together, I already knew something wasn't right. So we can fix it. So just be careful that you lay your fabrics down, and pin them and sew as straight as you can. Are you going to have a mishap along the way? Sure, but we know this isn't your prom dress. This is just some Flying Geese. So let me just double check and see if anybody else has any questions. Thanks, Gloria. Okay, so you'll be able to add to your resource book. And like I said, the link for the PayHip is where I put the patterns for you to download. So it's www.payhip.com/schoolhouse. Or the link is in the description below. It'll always be there. You can get it anytime. So I'm gonna go clean up my mess. Let's see, I don't see any other questions. So I appreciate everybody joining me. If you're new, if you'd like to subscribe, that would be nice. So you hit the subscribe button. You can also hit the little bell button that gives you an alert when I download a new video or I come on live. And when I come on live, I always wait like 10 minutes or so for everybody to get a chance to get to log in and all that. And if you like the video, thumbs up would be nice. If you don't like it, I guess you can give me a thumbs down if you really want to. So thanks again, everyone. I'll see you next Thursday night at 7. And have a great rest of your week. Bye. Thanks again.